Hi, my name is Cameron Williams, and this is a guide by PCS on how to use and set up OneDrive. So let's jump right in. On your computer, if it's not already running, Windows 10 comes pre-installed with OneDrive. If it's not already running in your tray, as it's not on mine, you can just open the Start menu and type OneDrive. It'll open up. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. Normally this would prompt you for your password, and if you have two-factor authentication, it'll also send you a text message code for that. I've already signed in on this computer before, so it's not going to ask for a password or the two-factor authentication. Always click Work or School Account. It'll sign you in. This allows you to change the location of where you're saving the files. I've already synced it, like I said, so when I click Next, it's going to give me this pop-up that says the folder already exists because I've already synced it. I'm just going to use the same location. I could change where it was located. You can just drag files into OneDrive to have them be uploaded. There's 4 icons that only shows 3 here. The 4th is a syncing icon. That means it's actively syncing or hasn't synced yet. Offline only essentially just means the file is not actually stored on your computer. It's only stored in the cloud, but all you have to do is double click it and then it'll take it to this green checkbox, which just means that the file that you currently have is the same as the file version on the cloud. And it is available for editing offline if, say, you take your laptop on a vacation, although you shouldn't be working on vacation. You can also right-click on any file and say always keep on this device, which I'll show you how to do, and it gives you this solid green checkbox, which means it'll always keep the most up-to-date version synced to your computer. Whereas with the prior icon, if, say, you edited a document from a different computer or device, it would go out of sync with the most recent version and go back to the cloud icon once it checked in. This just shows how to do that, which I'll show you myself. Sharing, which I'll show some more of. There's a phone app if you wanted to maybe view, and theoretically, but I would advise against it because it's a phone screen, view and or edit documents on your phone. This includes Word files, Excel files, and PowerPoint. You have to get all the way through the process and click this Open My OneDrive folder or it will not function correctly. Like I showed you with these cloud icons, the way that you make a file available offline. I'm going to undo this one so I can show you. Okay, so we're back to the cloud icon. If I right click on it and say always keep on this device, it'll download it and give me that solid green checkbox. Let me go back. However, if I just click a cloud icon to file, it'll open the most recent version. And if I close it real quick, it'll show now that I have the solid green checkbox because I've downloaded and I currently have the most up-to-date version. Before we get too involved, though, I want to get into some settings optimization. So to get to settings, if you click the OneDrive icon, this little blue guy, and then More, and then Settings again, let's just go first to the Settings tab. Generally, I just recommend that everything is checked, but most importantly, because sometimes it's not checked by default, this Files on Demand, or save space and download files as you use them. This is what allows all those cloud icons, green checkbox icons, etc., to actually function at all. And the primary reason you want to use this is that if you decheck this, it is going to download all of these files to all devices that you sync to OneDrive, and potentially that could end up being not only quite a bit of hard drive use, but also quite a bit of bandwidth use in terms of downloading files, and it takes a lot longer to actually synchronize the files. So I definitely recommend turning that setting on. On a secondary setting in the Office tab, I'd recommend turning this feature off. In theory, this allows you to do collaborative editing inside of Word and Excel files in the Word and Excel desktop applications. We found that this setting this function or feature of Word and Excel doesn't always work all that well. You're welcome to leave this on, but there's some possibilities that it could cause some synchronization errors, as well as not allow the collaborative editing at all. If you want to get it in collaborative editing, I'll show later in the video, I'll show you how to do that. In the Account tab, you can see what locations are syncing. Since we're just using our personal account, if you were syncing SharePoint sites, they would show up below here, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. But for each location that you're syncing, you can select Choose Folders. And I could decheck some of these folders if I just don't want to see them on this device. If it doesn't make sense for some reason or another, whatever, you can just make it invisible to this computer. You can always go back in if you accidentally did something and reselect a folder from this folders that you're syncing window. I'm going to just leave everything synced though. I'm going to go into this backup tab a little bit later, but for now, let's just go into sharing. So if I right-click on any file or folder, maybe you're working with an outside consultant and you want to share a specific file that you're working on in OneDrive with an outside consultant. You could use this feature to do that. Maybe you want to grant a coworker access to a folder that for stuff that the two of you work together a lot on, but you're not ready to send it, into SharePoint or your file server, whatever it is that you're using. All this sharing and collaborative editing is almost identical in SharePoint, except for that the permissions are by default organization-wide, whereas for OneDrive it's by default only you. But let's just dive into the sharing window. Once you right-click on a file or folder, click Share. This is what comes up. You can type in an email address. I'm going to put in Sydney here. If you're typing to an external person you haven't shared to before, you'll have to type their full email address. You can write a customized little email address. You can also share with multiple people simultaneously. If you just click this send button, it's going to send like a nice little clean looking automated message that says, Cameron has shared this document with you. Click here to open it. And it's got all the, the typical Microsoft branding on it. I can also copy a link to it and send it in maybe an instant message or whatever. I can also, if I click here, more apps, it'll allow me to do a couple different things, but usually the most common one would be open a new email and start writing the email out manually if you want to have a little bit more of a personal touch than just typing a message in here. And then finally, in terms of customizing the security settings of how you're sharing a document, if you click this banner where it says people you specify can edit, by default, we normally leave this one turned off, anyone with a link, because if I shared this file and selected this anyone with a link, that person could then forward it to the internet and everyone would be able to see it. People in professional computer support, pretty straightforward. It's really just anyone in your organization. People with existing access, this will not grant access to somebody who doesn't already have access. So if you tried to share a file and selected this people with existing access button, again, if they didn't have access, it wouldn't actually do anything. This is maybe if you're just trying to collaboratively edit on a file or say, hey, I need you to work on this file, but I don't want you to have to dig for it. You could also, you could click here, say apply, and say, hey, can you make these edits to this file and let me know when you're done. That way you're not emailing a copy of the file back and forth, and then you have to reconcile that in the original, etc. Conversely, if you do anyone in your organization, if they don't already have access to this folder, which in the case of OneDrive they wouldn't, this would grant them access. Specific people is the option required for granting people outside of your organization access. It will put them through like a sort of a two-factor authentication process where essentially when they click the link, it will send a 6-digit code to their email address and they'll need to type in that code to access the document. It really does wonders for security if you just use that option instead of the anyone with the link, but that is on a per organization basis. Hopefully we can just disable that because it's very much so not secure. For collaborative editing, like I said, if you left that option unchecked and you open a document, this share button up here, in theory, allows you to do collaborative editing. However, we found that it sometimes doesn't work. So conversely, if you want to do collaborative editing and you've already shared a document with somebody, you can say right-click on any file and say View Online. Unfortunately, the UI is a little bit stripped down, but for general document authoring, it's plenty. It performs more or less the same. We've seen sometimes that some formatting doesn't look the same in the cloud as it does in the desktop app, but hopefully you don't come across that issue. And then from here, if you haven't already shared it, you can also share it in the cloud. It's that same kind of sharing window. It looks the same. And then once they show up, you'll see their name up here. It'll say so-and-so is also editing this document. And just like Google Docs, it'll give a little icon of where their cursor is and where they're editing. And then in the comments, you can kind of have, this is like a chat feature in the document if you so desire. And yeah, so that's sharing, collaborative editing. Finally, I want to go into one of what I think is the most interesting and unique to OneDrive compared to the other like personal backup softwares is it's called the backup option or backup setting. So again, in more settings and then this backup tab. So important PC folders, backup my folders in the desktop documents and pictures folder on OneDrive so that they're protected and available on all devices. Essentially, a lot of times we have issues where people will save documents to their desktop or to their My Documents, and then their hard drive crashes and those documents are gone. Or let's say they have a desktop and a laptop and they're working on a file that's on their desktop and they're at home on their laptop and they don't have access to their files on their desktop. If you enable this, all those issues go away because everything's synced across all your devices. There are some issues if you have like roaming profiles or folder redirection turned on, which I don't expect you guys to know that. That's some organizations we set up with those features, but we're trying to phase that out in favor of things like OneDrive. But anyways, if you just click Manage Backup, it'll allow you to select what folders you want, and you can just click Start Backup. Your computer's going to do some funny looking things while it's doing that. I guess mine didn't. And yeah, so anytime I save, like make a new, let's just make a new Word document. You see this sync icon, same thing. It's going to synchronize this document. And now also in OneDrive, I've got desktop, documents, and pictures all now synchronizing across any devices that I have using that feature. And yeah, that's OneDrive in a nutshell. Thanks for watching, and as always, feel free to reach out to the help desk if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye.